Enwins 3D got in touch to tell me that they've brought the perfect model to the market for breathing new life into these locomotives. Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jennifer Kirk and it's great to see you. Now today we're going to be looking at a product from Enwins 3D. You might remember that we've reviewed quite a few of their things in the past, and this particular one is actually, I find really interesting. Now the reason for this is because this is a 3D printed locomotive replacement body. And we've reviewed these before, but this one, for me, actually is the deal clincher, because it makes use of the chassis of a locomotive that quite a lot of people are going to have lying around that has really totally been made redundant. And that's the Terrier, the old style Terrier, the one that was originally a Dapol model and then it passed to Hornby. And there are so many examples of these, but they've been completely outclassed by the new Hornby Terrier and the rails of Sheffield Dapol Terrier as well. And I think a lot of people are kind of wondering what on earth to do with these. They are so much worse than the new Terrier models that actually they look quite toy-like by comparison. I myself have 4 of these models, and when Enwins 3D got in touch, I thought this was a great opportunity to marry the pair together, and it's actually produced a really quite interesting locomotive. It's a Hudswell Clark long tank locomotive, similar to the type the Manchester Ship Canal used several of, and it's an example that doesn't appear in any of the other ready-to-run ranges. So they sent one over. Let's take a look at this in association with today's sponsor, Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories, and just see how easy it is to take one of your old Hornby or Dapol Terriers from days gone by and turn it into a productive locomotive on your layout once again. Enwins 3D specialise in the main in replacement locomotive bodies that are designed to be an easy fit over various donor chassis. So we reviewed, amongst others, this Cambrian Railways locomotive, which you see here now repainted into a fictitious industrial livery, and this is designed to fit on the Electrotren 060 chassis. But I think for a lot of people, if you don't already own a donor locomotive, then that can be a little bit frightening, this idea of taking a locomotive from your fleet and replacing the body. But when it comes to these locomotives, the Terrier from Hornby, originally a Dapol model, they've been completely outclassed. The all-new Hornby and also the Dapol Rails Terrier have really upped the bar substantially, to the point where this model that was considered a good model in the late 1980s and through the 1990s is now looking a little bit toy-like compared to its modern counterpart. But Hornby and before them Dapol sold hundreds of these over the years. The number of different liveries is actually quite mind-numbing, and I've got a few different ones here. And these are ones which they brought out, and in fact the South Eastern and Chatham Railway one that you see there was one of the last that they brought out just before they announced the all-new tooled variety. And towards the end, the colours and the finish on these did seem to go a little bit off the boil. So for example, Whitechapel, the some of the tops there, the green just doesn't look quite right, and the South Eastern and Chatham Railway is far too light. But we're not bothered about that, because just like so many people, my collection includes a load of these. I didn't really know what to do with them, and Enwins 3D got in touch to tell me that actually they've brought the perfect model to the market for actually breathing new life into these locomotives. This is the Hudswell Clark long tank locomotive, built for industry, quite prolific actually. They built a number of these for the NCB amongst others, and from my research there's at least 2 surviving that went into service with the Manchester Ship Canal Railway, with some minor detail differences. The water tanks were a bit sloped at the front, but this particular one is based on an NCB locomotive that actually lasted very, very late in NCB service. Certainly there are photographs online of it running in steam on the NCB right through to at least 1979, possibly even into the very early 1980s, and the locomotive is preserved, although not currently in a running state. There's also videos of the prototype running as well, and it really does seem to me to be quite a good choice for making in a ready to run, ready to fit 3D printed body such as this. Now, I'm just going to move these out of the way. This model is actually designed to be just a straight up fit for the chassis from those Terrier locomotives, has the right wheel size, wheel arrangements, and the 3D printed model has been designed with mounting points to just straight up accept that. You don't need to do any modification work whatsoever. What really has impressed me about this is the quality of the 3D print on this, with, you can see there, the detail. If I just try and wave my hand a little bit underneath there, you can see that we've got the underside of the boiler, we've got those splashes in there, really some nice detail. And these 3D prints are getting better and better. If we look down from the top as well, you can see that we've got daylight all the way down, just like on the prototype. Now this has been finished up and detailed a little bit by Nwins 3D. So we have the addition of the handrails, the whistles, and also the smoke box dart on there, and the buffers have come fitted. But this really does look nice. It's been finished in a kind of a leaf green, which is similar to the NCB livery that it carried, and I think actually it will really benefit from a bit of weathering. So that's something that in the future I think it will get done to it. It will get some coal dust into this bunker area, which you can see you've got quite a depth in there, so you can model it full or partly full on there really, really readily. And we've also got some pretty reasonable backhead detail, firebox detail in the cab too. So really, really impressed with the quality of the print. And actually it does feel, even though it's made of like plastic filament, it does feel like it's got a good substantial weight to it. When I'm squeezing it, it is very, very strong. The technology is definitely coming on in leaps and bounds. Now, to get access to a donor chassis, what we need to do, just going to put that to one side, and I'm going to choose one of these donor locomotives. This, never really happy with it. And it's been completely superseded by the all-new Hornby, and indeed Rails and Dapol have also brought out this locomotive as well. So with a choice of 3 different ones to go for, this is always going to be redundant. And all you actually need to do is undo a screw at the back and a screw at the front. And these chassis, which are otherwise actually quite a tight fit in these Dapol, well, ex-Dapol models, does come and slide out. And we also need to remove the couplings here. It slides out, and what actually has impressed me with this Nwins 3D replacement body is that we've suddenly got a whole load of extra space in there. So you can see down there inside the boiler barrel, and that will be a really good location to put in your DCC decoder. So hardwire the chassis, because the chassis were never DCC ready, and just slide that decoder down into there, and suddenly you've got an easy DCC fit compared to in the original Terrier model. It was just all but impossible without some major surgery. Once we've got the chassis in place, you can feel it clunk click every trip, and let's just make sure we don't cross thread it. Tighten those 2 screws back up, and then if you wish to add the couplings, I'm never normally a huge fan of these slightly fatter couplings. The actual body there does have a new mounting point because it is a longer chassis that you can just direct screw them into. And then there you have it. You've got the perfect replacement for those Terrier chassis. Now, I have seen online somebody did ask whether the new Hornby Terrier chassis would fit in these, and that does rather defeat the object. I don't believe they do, but really what these are about is breathing new life into older locomotives, which I think for a lot of people, these are going to be well and truly retired from your fleet. They are plentiful. Don't expect to pay too much for these. In fact, if people are asking for silly money, you can get the all-new tooled Hornby Terrier for, I've seen them down to about £69. So when you consider that that is a thoroughbred model, you really don't want this this scraggy old model for, I'd say, probably anything more than £25 to £30 tops, because you're going to completely discard the body. Going back, Wadden there, that's an older model. The actual colour finish on these is somewhat better than the newer ones. Some of the last models that were released have some very dubious colour schemes, like this Whitechapel. But they are perfect donor chassis. Now, if you want to DCC fit them, now I've already done the fit. This is the Kent and East Sussex Railway Green Sutton, and you can see there that the DCC fit is very, very straightforward. They very helpfully on this allow you to isolate the pickups to solder tabs. We've also got solder tabs on the back of the motor, and you can see there I've just hardwired on an 8-pin decoder that just fits in there nicely. And as I said before, if we go back to this body, and I'm just going to remove the DC chassis that's in here, we can just slide that decoder into that boiler barrel, and then again it just clips in. And the reason I've chosen that Sutton locomotive is just simply because the green on those wheels really look to me quite a pleasant colour. The green on these wheels just, it looks a bit plasticky and odd, so I decided not to use that particular model. Now, with some weathering and some decals, this is really going to look the part. And as I said at the beginning of the review, I really do think that Nwins 3D have upped their game, and the quality on the print on this really is their best to date. The locomotive runs really well, which is just what you would expect from the donor chassis that is that old Hornby Terrier. It has to be said that this is an excellent idea from Nwins 3D. I'm really pleased to see an innovative way of using now redundant locomotive chassis in this way. It doesn't require most people to go out and try and buy one because they've probably already got one. Or in the case of me, I've actually got 4 of these things. And this is a really great way of extending their life in a very, very cost-effective way. The quality of the 3D print on this model is exceptionally good. It's much better than any of the other 3D printed models that I've seen thus far. The technology gets better by the day, and this model does certainly show that. I particularly like that Nwins 3D have gone for a prototype that hasn't appeared ready to run, but is reasonably well known nonetheless. I'd love to see a few modifications with those slightly sloped water tanks to be able to finally add to my MSC fleet. Numbers 67 and 70 do still survive from the Manchester Ship Canal Railway that were long tank Hudswell Clarks, and this would be a great opportunity to be able to add them to my locomotive fleet. All in all, this gets a full-on thumbs up from me. It's a really innovative model, and I think Nwins 3D have really scored well in this niche. For the application of some NCB plates from 247 Development and a rub over with some weathering powders, I've used some real ash, sieved very, very fine, and also some soot, which I took from just inside the chimney of my wood-burning stove. Again, sieve all the bits out and just get to work with a couple of brushes. And also I've got some dirty washers as well. And I think it really does tone down that colour of the paintwork and just bring this model alive. If you've got an old Hornby or Dapol Terrier, then this is well worth looking into to extend the life of a model that's probably been relegated to a dusty shelf somewhere, and it really can continue to give sterling service. Well, I hope you found that video interesting. We've got a link in the description box down below that takes you to Nwins 3D to find this model and also their other products too. Don't forget to tickle that like button, share this video, and also subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. And don't forget that the Jenny Monday Club wagon, that MDV special commission from Acura Scale, is still available, and we've got a link to that as well in the description box below. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. I'll see you next time. Happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky 107107, George Botterini, Andy Finch, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grantline Products, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Graham Foster, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, and Mo Henry. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.